Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you.
All right. One bit of unfinished business. Yes, I know. I said the last video was the end of Wednesday videos, but I almost forgot. I gotta rank the 13th Doctor's era, not the whole thing, rather my top 10. What I think is the best of an era. What do I think was the best of an era that didn't usually do a lot for me? Well, you're about to find out, and allow me to spoil something right off the bat. Haunting of Villa Diodati is not on this list. I know that is the one that the fandom has collectively decided is the good one of this run under Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall, but I have really big issues with it. If you don't know what they are, there's the video. Check it out. It won't come up here. I'm talking about stuff I actually do like. So let's get started. Number 10, The Ghost Monument. This was kind of a pick-me-up for me after not fully feeling great about The Woman Who Fell to Earth. This is not an exceptional episode, but it has the feel. It has the energy. It has the sense of adventure that I like from Doctor Who in general, and I really liked from this era when it did it. And I think that this was an episode that captured it quite well. I like just the constant moving forward, the sense of like, we got to keep going. It has momentum that I really enjoy. I actually quite like the villain and how they don't actually get to defeat him, and he's just dismissively like, yeah, I'm not going to help you, and then he's gone. I actually love that. I even like the weird deadly scarf things, because that's weird and bizarre, and like, who the hell thinks of that? I don't know, an alien mind coming up with weapons that doesn't think the way humans think. That's who comes up with that. I dig it. I just enjoy this. Number 9, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. This is one that I had to rewatch to get a greater appreciation of. It kind of went in one ear and out the other. First time I watched it. Rewatching it though, there's a lot more to this than I gave it credit for before. First of all, it's got some really good guest performances, as well as the core cast doing pretty dang good work as well. It has that sense of adventure that the Ghost Monument also has, so that's a big bonus for me. I feel like it, in many ways, it handles the historical elements better than Doctor Who often does. It doesn't feel quite as much of a Wikipedia entry just reciting everything about these people. We get to see Tesla and Edison just exist as people. It's one of the better historical episodes of this era, and I'm not big on historical episodes in the first place, but this one grew on me. I really came to appreciate it on the second viewing. Number 8, Revolution of the Daleks, the second of the Dalek New Year's Eve special trilogy. Like, first of all, I'll just fess up. You're going to see all 3 parts of this trilogy on here. This is the one that comes in the lowest, partly because the stuff with Chris Noth's character is not really adding all that much. I'm not just saying that because the guy turned out to not be a particularly great human being, but honestly, the character doesn't add a ton. I could also argue Jack doesn't add all that much, speaking of people who turned out to be not great human beings, but at least Jack is fun in this, and it's a continuation on the Reconnaissance Dalek, which I actually really like, and I've always liked in general the infighting between Daleks. I like when that comes up, and that's here as well. So it also has that energy and that sense of momentum that, as I've said repeatedly already in this list, this era didn't always have it, but when it did, It really worked. Number 7, Fugitive of the J Dune. This probably would have ranked higher if, the Fugitive Doctor had actually gone anywhere. But ultimately, even revisiting it and knowing that this is effectively just an abandoned storyline for all intents and purposes, I still enjoy it. A lot of that having to do with the Fugitive Doctor herself. Jo Martin is really good in this part, like really good. She's phenomenal. She is so commanding and such charisma. I'm really excited for her to do Big Finish. If RTD ever wants to bring her back and do something, please, I would be so here for that. She does a lot to elevate this. And even that aside, structurally, it's pretty well put together. But there's a good misdirect with you thinking that it's her partner that the J Dune are after, but then it turns out to be her. Then we find out who she is and her behavior. Like, she's got just enough of that essence. Like, yeah, you are the Doctor, but you're a very different Doctor from the one we're currently dealing with. It does just have a really fun energy to it. But it does in many ways feel like a part 1 to something that never got a proper part 2. Not this episode's fault, but does still bring it down a little bit. Number 6, Resolution. The first of the New Year's Eve special, New Year's Day special. Whatever, the Dalek specials. The first one. This is what introduced the Reconnaissance Dalek, and I like the Reconnaissance Dalek a lot. It's creepy the way it's piloting people and using them pretty much as puppets, but like they're not completely taken over and at times trying to even fight against it, but it just doesn't work. And does it throw together its own tank casing pretty quickly? Yeah. But I think it works, again, because it has that energy and it has the momentum. And I like bringing it back down to the Doctor versus a single Dalek. Not a fleet, not a complete army of the thing, just one. It's a reminder that these things, even one of them, is extremely dangerous. And I like it for that as well, in addition to everything else going on that I enjoy. There are problems here and there. I've talked about them in the reviews specifically talking about this, but when it isn't having a few stumbles, it's quite good. Number 5, Demons of the Punjab. This is a very good historical episode, partly for talking about a period of history that, while the UK is very much responsible for in many ways, is an aspect of history. Well, I can't say whether or not it's talked about much in the UK. It's not talked about much in the US, and bringing it down to the ground level and dealing with its impact on people, ordinary people. I think in general, I find the historical settings work better when they deal with historical events, but not historical figures, so that we can focus on just getting to know these characters in this situation without worrying about, are we honoring or getting all the key information in on this historical figure? And it just feels more natural, more lived in, more earned. This has a really wonderful heart at its center, and it is about the bonds that pull us together, but also what happens when they snap, and when they snap hard enough to leave lasting damage. This is a really good one. Number 4, It Takes You Away. This, to me, might well be the pinnacle of just frickin' weird Doctor Who. And I like frickin' weird Doctor Who. It hasn't been this kind of what the hell in a while. I can't remember the last time it was just this offhandedly, casually bizarre. But I really like it. Because in a universe that is this infinite, why can't you have a tunnel passage connecting two realities with moths that eat flesh but not clothing that connects to a sentient universe that's also a frog? Is that absolutely insane? Yes, and I love it. There are some issues with the characterization of some of the guest cast, and what the episode is trying to say about grief is quite nice. How much it succeeds at that is it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but the stuff that is good about this is also almost unique to this. This is good and hits me in a way that very few episodes of Doctor Who do. This or any other era. When a show can be bold enough to be this weird, it just makes me so happy. Number 3, Eve of the Daleks. It's Dalek Groundhog Day, and it's a lot of fun. Doctor Who has not done time loops nearly as often as you would think, but this is a neat idea. It's a neat conceit, and I like the idea that the time loop is shrinking so that they can't just keep trying this infinitely until they get it right. They'll get more chances, but they're on the clock as well. And the Daleks are there, they're threatening, and there is just a light enough touch and feel. You have those Groundhog Day moments of realizing, oh, well, we can take them all again on this one. We can't do that every time, but we can on this one. And Doctor having this rousing speech of like, we fail, we try again, we fail again, but better. And like does the rousing speech, and then immediately the next loop, they get gunned down almost immediately. This just has a really great energy to it. And again, it has that propellant nature, that momentum that I deeply appreciate, and it's just a good time. Number 2, Can You Hear Me? I know that I praise this one a hell of a lot more than actually anybody else that I know. Some people don't like what it's saying or how it says it. Some people have very different reads on certain parts of this than I do. I won't necessarily try and claim that the episode is unimpeachable or above critique, but what I can tell you is that I stick very firmly to my read of this episode, of what it is saying, of what it is doing, of the nature of these godlike beings that pit societies against themselves, how that parallels with depression, how it parallels with that sense that your mind is at war with itself for the benefit of something that just wants nothing but harm for you. The weirdness, again, much like It Takes You Away, it's just this guy whose fingers come off. That's freaking weird, and I love it. I like the metaphor, the analogy, or at least how I choose to read it. I even like that last scene with Graham. Other people don't. I do. Again, I like my read on it. I'm not going to say that my read is correct and other people's isn't. But I have read this episode in a way that makes me love it. And rewatching this now multiple times has done nothing but reinforce my read on this. Whether or not my read on this as a metaphor for depression, as an examination of these things, of the doctor's scene with Graham as being an extension of the fact that she is not able to relate to people, but her telling him, I'm going to go through these actions and then circle back and say what I should have said in the first place, is her version of letting him in, because she can't stop herself from doing the weird alienating thing, but she can at least warn him that she's about to do it. This is my read on this. And through the lens that I view this episode, I really love it. But despite it having ranked the highest other times that I've done things vaguely related to this and other statements I made before, it actually is not at number 1, as I was expecting it to be. Number 1, The Power of the Doctor. This is just so joyous, so excited, so in love with the history of the Doctor, arguably with its own era. I mean, bringing back characters like Vinder and Ashad, the Fugitive Doctor even, who don't really need to be there. They're there as a celebration of this era, but it's also a celebration of Doctor Who as a whole, with the classic Doctors coming in. And the thing is, every other episode on this list, nearly, every other episode on this list, I can go, okay, but there is this. Even with Can You Hear Me, which I love, I will still say, okay, so the wrap-up was a little rushed at the end. I don't really have a major reservation for this. That's not to say that's perfect. It's not. There's a lot of logistical things you can get hung up on. And if the celebratory feel of the whole thing is not connecting with you, it can feel really indulgent and almost sort of insulting, like, hey, remember this? And you're just sitting there going, yeah, I do, and I don't care. So if the celebratory feel of it doesn't wrap you up in its energy, then yeah, maybe this doesn't work for you, but it wraps me up. And it's managed to do that on repeat viewings. It didn't fade. I still watch this with a massive smile on my face. Whether it is Jodie Whittaker's Doctor and her marvelous closing line.
Tag. You're it.
Joe Martin as the Fugitive Doctor getting one more triumphant moment. Does it mean anything for her overall character arc? Do we know much more about her? No, but it still just felt good to see her again. To see Ace with the baseball bat. To see Tegan get to confront the Fifth Doctor and kind of call him out on his nonsense. Are these cheap pops? Maybe. I don't care. I don't care. If it works, it works. A win is a win. This works. This is a win. I really enjoy it. I liked it even more revisiting it. And I think it's probably the one I am most likely to come back to and rewatch for pleasure. Power of the Doctor. This was a rocky era, but it finished real well. What do you think of this list? What's your top 10? How much do you disagree with mine? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. Enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe are also of great assistance, but don't worry too much about it. What I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council, and I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And now my thanks to my Patreon supporters that make this possible, including Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Oliver B., Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Jen, T. Love, Auntie Kate 808, Pranabi Likes the Poodle, Robin Powell, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Dave Hall, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. You can get I get all the names right and then I can't talk. If you want to hear me stumble over my tongue after saying your name, it's in the rewards here on the Patreon.